I'm Paige Brown. I am an electrical engineer and I have over 10 years of professional experience in the field. I recently started a new role as a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer for a federal agency. And my trajectory here has been very interesting, so I can walk you through my path. I'm from Ahoskie. It's a small town in rural northeastern North Carolina, very small. If you go to Walmart, you're for sure to see someone that you know. There's one high school in the entire county, so you can get a feel for how small it is. I also went to college at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, Aggie Pride. There, I majored in electrical engineering, and immediately after graduating, I went straight into the workforce. I began my career as an electrical engineer with a defense company. Um, I began in a developmental program, and following the completion of that program, I became a lead systems engineer for a missile warning system. And my time there was very hard. It was very difficult. The environment was very exclusionary. It was not diverse. I encountered lots of challenges, and it was just very hard for me to navigate that space. To step away from that environment, I did a lot of volunteer work with the National Society for Black Engineers, and I chartered a NSBE Junior chapter. That is a chapter for students in grades K through 12. So we did a lot with the students to expose them to engineering and provide opportunities that they wouldn't have had otherwise. So I really enjoyed that, and it took me away from that environment. And at that time, it made me feel like I wanted to be a teacher and wanted to work with students and provide them the opportunity to be exposed to engineering. And so I went and pursued my master's in education while working. And while pursuing that degree, I actually transitioned roles and began to work for the Food and Drug Administration as a reviewer of medical devices. And that job was completely different from my first job. It was so much more diverse. There were people from all different backgrounds there. I did encounter a few challenges here and there, but ultimately, all of my colleagues looked to me for my expertise, and it really made me feel good. It was just a totally different environment, and I didn't know how to explain it, but I felt like I was valued and like I belonged. So while working at FDA, I still had the desire to support students and those who were not well represented in the field of engineering. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. And so I decided to pursue my PhD in engineering education. I figured that my background in engineering and then my love for education and working with students would mesh really well together. So I did that. I applied to Purdue University and I was accepted with a full ride. I received a fellowship that covered everything. I went and started the program full time on campus for the first year. When I came back, I also became involved with diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts that the FDA had initiated. It was in the year 2020. During that year, Ahmaud Arbery was murdered, and there was a lot of racial tensions in the United States. And so the company decided that they wanted to do something to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion in the organization. And that was something that I was really passionate about because of all of the different challenges that I've encountered in the workplace as a woman, as a Black person, as a millennial. I feel like a lot of the challenges that I've encountered involve my identity and who I am. So when there was a call put out to join a committee that would develop and lead the implementation of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging initiatives, I jumped right on it. I was excited to join that because it was something that I was really passionate about. And I became really involved in that, and that work sort of shaped the research that I did at Purdue University. My research examined Black women in engineering and their experiences in undergraduate programs and in the professional engineering workplace. I also looked at diversity, equity, and inclusion in engineering. So that sort of shifted my pathway into the direction that I would take, and I was now interested in diversity, equity, inclusion in the professional workplace and how I could create spaces that are equitable for all people. So in my first job, some of the adversity that I faced involved discrimination, microaggressions, being micromanaged by someone on my team who wasn't even an engineer. My work was scrutinized at a level that others did not have to go through. My work was questioned, it was double checked, triple checked, whereas a man no one asked him a question about anything. And so that was just very challenging to me. In my second job, I also faced adversity in the workplace. I remember this one instance where someone in leadership, a department head, called me a bitch. It was very hurtful. I couldn't believe it. There was no excuse for it at all. And I was really taken aback by what he said to me and the manner in which he said it. And I didn't know what to do initially. It happened in the hallway in passing when I spoke to him and asked him a question. And so I went to a trusted colleague's office and told her what happened. And she got emotional and upset, which made me emotional, and I began to cry. And so I went to my supervisor's office to tell her what had happened, and she was very apologetic about it, and she asked me what I wanted to do. At that point, I was unsure of what I wanted to do because nothing had ever happened to me before to that degree. And so I went and talked to the union reps at my job to see what was the best way to handle the situation. She told me the first thing I needed to do was to confront him and to let him know that that was unacceptable. She also told me the other avenues that I had to address the issue. And so I prepared to address him and to speak to him about what had happened. I wanted my supervisor present, but because I didn't trust him at all in that moment and I didn't know what his reaction would be towards me. So I held a meeting with him and my supervisor, and I addressed the situation by letting him know that I didn't appreciate what he said and how it was very disrespectful and inappropriate in a workplace environment. His response surprised me. He started crying. And I was like, what is this? What's going on? I thought I was going to be the one that was emotional and crying. But maybe it was just his way of trying to make me feel bad for him or for him to take some heat away from the situation. I didn't understand it. But either way, I let him know that I didn't appreciate that and that it was completely inappropriate. And so he apologized for it. My supervisor was there, so she was present and she was a witness. In the end, I did inform his supervisor what happened, and I was issued an apology from his supervisor. That was one situation that really impacted me, and I don't want anyone else to have to go through that. It was very difficult for me. It was very emotional for me. And I don't know why, because I've been called worse out in public. But this was in a space where I should have felt safe, right? It was at work, a place where I go every day, working to fulfill the mission for the organization. And that happens to me. And that wasn't the only situation with him, but it was the icing on the cake. And that situation, coupled with everything else that I've been through, seeing other friends who were engineers in this space post about issues that they encountered at work, that really made me think like, hey, I'm not the only person who may be going through this. There may be other people going through things like this that don't know what to do, that don't know how to navigate the situation. They may want to quit, but you don't have to quit. You can persist and continue on. And so that was a transformational moment for me, and it made me realize, hey, you can do something to help other women like you who are going through the same thing. So that's when I decided to write a book. In my book, I talk about my personal experiences in the workplace, and then I talk about how women can conquer or how they can navigate through challenges that they may face in the workplace. I provide 13 strategies for women to use to overcome challenges in the workplace. One of those strategies is to master your craft. I encourage women to become an expert in their area, in their field, whatever it is that they do, become an expert because people will question you. They will try to trip you up and they will try to make you seem like you don't know what you're doing. If you master your craft, they can't trip you up, they can't take your knowledge away from you. Another strategy is to speak up for yourself. Now, I'll admit, it really took me a long time to find my voice. When I first started out in my first job, I didn't speak up. I let people treat me any kind of way. I didn't use my voice. And I really regret that because in doing that, I allowed that behavior to continue to perpetuate. So when you speak up for yourself, you not only speak up for yourself, but you speak up for others who may endure the same treatment. And so speaking up for yourself can help stop that mistreatment, and it can bring light to the inequities and the inappropriate behaviors that are going on in the workplace. The department head, who called me a derogatory term, he was speaking about diversity, equity, and inclusion at an all hands meeting. And in that meeting, I was just shaking my head like, I cannot believe you are speaking about this because you are one of the main reasons that we have an issue here. He was speaking on the topic because it was during the time where the agency wanted us to ramp up on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And I did not like how he was trying to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, but he was not acknowledging the issues that were created because of leadership. I spoke up during that meeting and said a lot of the issues that we have are because of upper level management, and there are things that need to be discussed in terms of how people are treated and the opportunities that people are given. And in that meeting, it felt wonderful to speak up. I can't tell you how many people messaged me after that meeting thanking me for speaking up and them saying they wish they had the guts to say something. And I was just like, I wish you would have said something so it wasn't just coming from me. So I think that really sparked change and conversation because other leaders reached out to me to want to learn more about how to fix these issues that we had going on. So I would say that speaking up and using your voice, speaking truth to power is essential to break down barriers and systemic issues that plague the engineering workplace and the STEM field in general. So I believe that everywhere you go will have flaws in any organization that you go to, whether it's a diverse and inclusive organization or whether it's an organization that has serious equity issues. But the thing is, you have to figure out why you're there and if you need to leave. Now, there are several reasons for you to leave a workplace environment. If that environment is toxic, if it's impacting your physical, mental, or emotional well being in a negative way, then you should leave. If you're truly passionate about the work that you do and you see that there is a way to resolve the issues, then I encourage you to stay and work through it. If your organization can also serve as a place where you can continue to grow and advance, or as a stepping stone for another opportunity, I urge you to stay until you find something else. But definitely, if it's toxic, get out of there because you are more important than that job. I think there are a lot of opportunities for women to help others conquer the workplace, and they can do it from wherever they are. If they are just a worker at the lowest level, if they lead a team, or if they manage a large organization, they can help people in any space. If they're on a team, they can help create an inclusive environment for their colleagues by engaging in inclusive behaviors. If they're leading a team, they can treat everyone fairly. If they're leading an organization, they can develop policies, create programs, and implement initiatives to help improve the culture of their workplace. Women can help others conquer the workplace by telling their story. Just like I'm telling my story about the things that I've gone through, that has served as inspiration to others to keep going. By sharing the strategies that I've used to overcome challenges can be a big help to other women. Another way that you can help women is by being a mentor to help guide them through their adversity. You can also be a sponsor, which is a little different from a mentor. A mentor is someone who provides guidance and advice for someone. A sponsor goes a little step further and they help put people in a position to excel. They may put your name in the hat for different opportunities. They may suggest you for different projects and help you with your advancement. I would also encourage women to find a mentor and a sponsor. And a lot of women will seek out a mentor that looks like them. I encourage that. It's very important to have a mentor that looks like you because they can provide advice from an intersectional approach. Because if I had a white woman as a mentor, she may not understand some of the challenges I go through as a Black woman. And that all ties into intersectionality and our multiple identities intersecting to determine what type of experience we would have in whatever environment that we are in. Conversely, I encourage you to find a mentor that does not look like you. From my point of view, I have sought out white male mentors because they have knowledge, perspectives, experiences, and access to things that I don't or that other people who look like me do not. And so I can learn a lot of lessons from them that can help me excel in my career. I want women to know that they should never doubt themselves. Never doubt themselves based on the perceptions or perspectives that other people may have of them or based on the way that other people treat them. I want women to know that they are more than capable to do what men are able to do, and that in some cases we may be able to do it better. There was one situation that happened while I was pursuing my PhD. I was in a class and there were a lot of reading assignments and we would have class discussions. And there was one white man in the classroom and he made it known that he didn't read the articles that were assigned, but somehow he was able to engage in the conversation during class. And to me, it seemed like he really read the articles and I just didn't understand. So I asked him one day, like, how are you able to engage in this conversation in an intellectual manner? And he said, well, he just reads the abstract and comes up with some questions and asks questions during the session to make it seem like he read. And to me, that was an example of privilege, him using his privilege as a man in that environment. And I asked him straight up, do you think part of you being able to get away with this is due to your privilege? And he was like, yeah, probably. So that was really surprising. So, women, we work really hard. We have the qualifications and the credentials. You can do this. So, I would say don't doubt yourself because of what other people have to say. I have not always had a STEM identity. When I think about engineering identity is composed of three constructs, and that is the perception that one has about their competence and their ability to do engineering. The second is their interest in engineering, and the third is the recognition that they get from others about them being an engineer. And so for me, I lacked that third construct. I did not have people in the workplace who thought that I could be an engineer. They didn't recognize me as an engineer. When I talked about my first job, I spoke about how they didn't think that I was able to do the job. They double checked my work. And that really impacted the first two constructs. It made me feel like I couldn't do engineering and I wasn't good at engineering. But when I started my second job at the FDA and people actually looked to me for my expertise because they didn't have that knowledge, it really boosted my engineering identity. And that really helped me persist because I was confident as an engineer and I was really interested in the work that we did at FDA in comparison to my first job. And that really impacted my engineering identity because I was excited to do the work. I was excited to learn more. And I felt like that was the job for me. I will say that different environments and contexts can definitely impact your engineering or your STEM identity. I also think that my other identities, because I'm more than just an engineer. I'm more than just a woman in STEM. I'm a Black woman. I am a mother. I am an educator. I have my own personal beliefs, and all of those things have contributed to how I have persisted in engineering. There are many opportunities for women in engineering and technology. I think that women, whether they're in school, undergraduate, graduate, or in the professional workplace, they have a lot that they can do within their sphere or realm of influence in terms of impacting engineering and helping to make it a place of inclusion.